Koboko, northern Uganda, sometime in the 1930s. A barefoot boy runs across the dusty plains, chasing a ball made of banana leaves. His laughter bounces off the hills as his mother calls him in from the heat. His name is Idi, a child of the land, of little schooling but fierce energy. His mother, a herbalist and spiritual healer of the Kakwa tribe, teaches him the old ways, how to read the winds, how to fear no man. Uganda back then belonged not to Ugandans. It was British territory, its riches harvested for foreign crowns, its people trained to obey. Idi Amin saw this world clearly, even as a child. The white men in suits gave orders, the black men saluted, and something about that stung deeper than poverty ever could. By his late teens, Idi had found a way out, the army. He joined the King's African Rifles, first as a cook, then as a soldier. Not because he loved the British, but because he wanted to learn their game. And he did. He became one of the most physically imposing and respected soldiers in East Africa, serving in Somalia, Kenya, and during the Mau Mau uprising. He was fearless, charismatic, even charming, but inside a fire burned. Seizure of power, a promise of change. In 1962, Uganda gained independence. The country was young, fragile, and still deeply entangled with British influence. By the late 1960s, Idi Amin had risen to the top of Uganda's military. A falling out with then-President Milton Obote set the stage for what came next. On January 25, 1971, while Obote was out of the country, Idi Amin seized power in a bloodless coup. Crowds cheered in the streets. Soldiers paraded with pride. A new dawn, many believed, had come. For the first time, a Ugandan of humble birth, of no European ties, no elite schooling, stood as the head of state. And Idi Amin wanted to do something radical. Uganda is for Ugandans. He meant it. He expelled thousands of British advisors. He broke ties with Israel over the treatment of Palestinians. And in one of his boldest and most controversial moves, he expelled over 70,000 Asians, many of them business owners who had monopolized the Ugandan economy since colonial times. It shocked the world. But to many Ugandans, it felt like justice. Banks were nationalized. Land was redistributed. Foreign corporations were cut off unless they agreed to fairer terms. Amin allied with fellow African leaders like Gaddafi and Nyerere. He gave fiery speeches against Western imperialism. He mocked the British monarchy, calling himself the conqueror of the British Empire in Africa. Western leaders saw him as unstable. But Africans across the continent, many saw him as brave. The smear campaign. And then the stories began. British tabloids started running bizarre headlines. They called Amin a madman, erratic, bloodthirsty. Some even claimed he was a cannibal, a rumor so outlandish it felt cartoonish. Yet it stuck. But where was the evidence? No photos, no bodies, no witnesses. The cannibalism story began to define him in the Western imagination. It overshadowed everything he did. Never mind that multiple African leaders, including Kenya's Jomo Kenyatta and Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah, also expelled colonial economic interests. Only Amin became the African monster. And still, no one asked, what scared the West so much about Idi Amin? Was it really the violence? Or was it the fact that a black African man had taken control of his country's destiny without asking permission? Uganda under pressure. Amin's rule grew darker as pressure mounted from within and abroad. Suspected plots led to purges, critics disappeared, fear grew, his own military fractured, and Uganda's economy, cut off from Western support, began to bleed. By 1979, after a failed invasion of Tanzania, Ugandan exiles and Tanzanian forces retaliated. They invaded Kampala. Amin fled first to Libya, then to Saudi Arabia, where he lived out the rest of his life in exile. He died in 2003. No court, no trial, no defense, just silence. The ghost they created today, when most people hear the name Idi Amin, they think of a savage, a cannibal, a clown in uniform. Few remember the boy from Koboko. Fewer still remember his bold efforts to liberate Uganda from foreign control. Yes, there were killings, oppression, and fear. But his legacy cannot be reduced to headlines written by the very powers he tried to defy. Idi Amin was not a monster. He was a mirror of Africa's pain, of colonial trauma, and of what happens when power meets isolation. He was flawed, broken even, but he loved his country fiercely, and he dared to say the one thing the West could never forgive: Africa is not yours. In northern Uganda, old men still speak of Amin with mixed tones, fear, yes, but also pride. In the words of one elder, he wasn't perfect, But he stood up when others bowed. He made the white man listen, and for that, they turned him into a ghost. And so the story of Idi Amin lives on, not in newspaper cartoons or foreign films, but in the whispers of a continent still struggling to define itself on its own terms.